You have got to be aware of moving the goalposts. You have got to be aware of moving goalposts. Moving goalposts can run into you like deer on a lonely highway these days, especially if you are in the NFL. Now, with our situation here in Philadelphia, I am acutely aware of how detractors will do this. Your quarterback. We saw the same thing here. We still see the same thing here with Jalen Hurts, even after he's been to a Super Bowl of the one Super Bowl. And people will still have a but. Yeah, he won a Super Bowl, but yeah, he can do this, but yeah, he wins, but they're always moving the goalposts. I'm seeing the same thing in Cleveland. When effectively and understand what you see. And I listen to this guy, I think his name is Jason Lloyd. He's been a detractor from the rip. From the rip. And that's okay. Opinions are like assholes. Everybody got one. Like a person, that's cool. But you still got to watch the tape. And you still got to come to grips with what you see on tape and what this guy is saying and how he is saying it, and just totally deleting mitigating factors, why things were the way they were. When you just throw the end result and you not deciphering how you got to that point, that's disingenuous and that's moving the goalposts. Because I'll say this, I've said this for a while. If Dylan Gabriel had done the things that Shedeur has done, same record, same everything. If everything was equal and he had produced some of those throws and made some of those plays that Shedeur had made, there would be no question. Now they still might make decisions about bringing another quarterback in. I'm just saying that if Dylan Gabriel would have shown any potential of being able to handle and play in this league, it would be no question what they were going to do next year. And you can't tell me after what you've seen, Shedeur hasn't done that. He hasn't made enough plays. And I don't understand what this guy, Jason Lloyd, I saw his rant the other day where he was talking about he still can't read coverages, flip coverages. But he prefaces this by saying, I'm not a quarterback's coach. I'm not a football guy. I don't watch a lot of film. Well, what the hell do you do that gives you this opinion? Here's where they start moving the goalposts. I have sources that tell me, here we go with that guy again. That guy named Sources. I got to find out who the hell this dude is. Because sources be telling folks everything. And nobody does their homework these days. You can't be on no radio show and spout out stuff like that and you not doing your homework. He's the worst in the NFL. Well, listen to what he says.
But the quarterback thing, yeah, I mean, I've said all along, I think Shedeur's presence will be a hindrance to some guy. Not somebody's going to take the job. They pay really well, and there's only 32 of the job. Somebody will take it. But there are candidates out there who will look at this and say, nope, I want nothing to do with that. How could you? Look at everything that Kevin went through over the last year with Shedeur and some of the stupidity and nonsense that was out there. What coach would want to sign up for that, particularly when he didn't play that well? He wasn't that good. Like I've been pretty adamant. He shouldn't be on this team. Like to me, Shedeur should not be on this team next year. He's not good enough to be the starter, and this organization is not stable and mature enough to have him as a backup. They've proven that.
So let's stop it right there. He's got some other comments we're gonna get to, but he shouldn't be a starter. Well, what should he? So what has he shown you? Has he made plays worthy of being a starter? Whether he turns out to be the franchise guy, because that's what it usually falls back into. Is he a franchise style quarterback? I believe he can be. And then when you look at some of these other guys, some of these other rookies, they're not coming out of gate lighting it up. They have moments, they have flashes. And then the more they play, the more experience they get, those good moments, those good things, those good plays, you see more of it. The consistency gets better. That's what happens in the NFL. You got to go through that learning curve. Everybody has to take their lumps, except the guys that you don't like. Their leash is short. So you don't want to give them the same opportunities you give somebody else when they're making the same mistakes. And you can always say, if all things being equal, because they're not. Because what this dude is conveniently forgetting is the receivers were not good, especially with the injuries. The offensive line was absolute trash. Not to mention how the play calling was. Heck, when Dylan Gabriel was in and when Shedeur was in, was two different things. And then you got a coach doing stuff like getting down to the 1 yard line and calling a tight end special trick play and all of that type of nonsense. That's why people bring up the word sabotage, because Kevin Stefanski was doing things that normal coaches don't do in those situations. You got a kid that brought your team all the way down, about to score, and you take him out to run a trick play in the cold weather with a tight end that's not used to taking snaps. What kind of sense does that make? But he doesn't mention any of that. All he says is Shedeur was terrible. He's the worst rookie in the league. He doesn't have the stats prove it, all of that type of stuff. And I say this all the time. Numbers don't lie, but they do deceive. You got to look at the situation. How many passes did Jerry Jeudy drop? How many times did their offensive line get decimated? Just get outworked and just they weren't good enough. How many times was he throwing the ball, dropping back, and he got 2 seconds to throw the ball? How many times did they start out on the 10-yard line coming out? All of those factors determine the success or failure a quarterback can have. He's not going to make all the great plays. He's got issues. He got, the turnover issue and dropping backwards and all of that type of stuff. Those are real issues and criticisms, valid ones. But there's also some things on the other side. He made throws that Dylan Gabriel couldn't make. He escaped in some situations that Dylan Gabriel couldn't have done. And you can't objectively look at the tape on both quarterbacks and say, this is the better option that you have. So guess what? Because if he would have been a second round pick, or if he would have been a late first round pick, like he was projected to be, he would have a much longer leash. And now you got a first round talent, in my opinion. Let's just even say it was a second round talent, but you got that person in the building for a fraction of the cost, and you're not even going to utilize that, because for folks like Jason Lloyd, they would rather throw everything out and start over with somebody they think they like. Because all of these guys, Arch Manning and Mendoza and all of these kids coming out, they have no idea what these kids are going to be like. None. They was ready to tell me Arch Manning was the best thing since sliced bread. And he was average at best. Let's hear what else he's got to say. This is where the bias is thick.
So what, are you going to draft another quarterback and put him atop Shedeur, and then all the stuff comes back again about, well, what about Shedeur? When are you going to play Shedeur?
The stuff.
Like, no thanks, hard pass. And I just think a lot of coaches are going to view it that way.
I disagree, but because I wanted to ask you another question about Kevin, but now I got to go off on Shedeur here for a second here. I think that's a little extreme. He shouldn't be on the team next year. You're not going to draft a quarterback in the first round next year. You're not in a position to.
I didn't say he shouldn't be in the NFL. He shouldn't be on this team.
I understand
this team
that.
Is not mature. Look at everything they just went through. And for what? He's not that good.
What did they really go through?
Do we need to remind ourselves of all the locker room stuff, all the crap about the miming and the
That's well.
What organization wants to put up with that?
You're breaking up for a second here. I think that was more media stuff. I don't think that there was actual problems in the locker room. I had a problem that Dylan Gabriel was there for obvious reasons, but I mean, look at it. I don't think that he was a problem in the building. I don't think that he was such a distraction in the building to everybody involved. I don't think they let it be that way.
He's exactly right. It was media driven, and you see when he asked that question, the dude Lloyd on the radio, he was flustered. He was trying to think of something to say. And what does he say? Look at all of this stuff. Like, all of what? at the end of the day, when you step on the field, are you taking care of business? And I say there's a lot of parallels to what we deal with here in Philadelphia, especially with Jalen Hurts, especially this year with A.J. Brown. Especially with A.J. Brown. Folks over here got all bent out of shape because he was tweeting and felt some kind of way because of some things he was tweeting. Had nothing to do with what he did when he stepped on the field. But people took that and ran with it because it was the low-hanging fruit. He mentioned the miming issue and all of that type of stuff. And I remember watching that situation, and I was wondering, like, he had to be just having fun with somebody. But the one thing I did notice is when that came out, and if you watch that video, if I'm not mistaken, there was nobody around with that. Whoever he was talking to, it was him. It was a one-on-one situation. It wasn't nobody around. It wasn't like he was trying to show people up. And to me, it looked like he was just funning with whoever this reporter was, because I don't think I ever saw who the reporter was. But they take that one moment like it's a big thing, and he's got the locker room divided. And this is what I mean when people that are on the outside looking in, that maybe have never been in the locker room or never played a pro sport, they don't understand how the dynamic in the locker room works. All media created stuff. And he leaned right into it. And that's why the bias is so thick for Shedeur Sanders, for somebody like Jason Lloyd. It'll never be right, because that's just somebody that he doesn't want to see in that position. And it's very clear. But when you have to look at the tape, when you have to look at the numbers and be objectively and try to be fair, that's when people like that fail.